Hiya, thanks very much for watching this video, for your support, all the nice comments you make, and hope you're coping as well as we can do during this extended period of isolation away from friends and family, and of course our beloved Manchester City. During this period I've produced a few videos, one of which was into 4 parts actually, an interview with Colonel Doug Hurley, an astronaut who is a City fan, who was up in the space station via the Dragon spacecraft in early 2020, but also flew the shuttle Atlantis. A lot of people have said, we'd love you to do a little bit more of an interview with Doug, so on that basis I have very kindly agreed to it. And he talks in this chat about the victory at Liverpool, obviously explains his love for Manchester City, but also how he's coping with the isolation and being away from friends and family, and how maybe his NASA training helped with that. Hope you enjoy the video. Hope it brings you some comfort and some pleasure. And remember, it's always great to be a Blue. Here's Doug. Well, Doug, it's lovely to speak to you again. Since we last spoke, City's team has gone better and better and better, culminating in a magnificent victory at Liverpool at the weekend. What are you making of what you're seeing at the moment?
Well, I think, I hope, like most City fans, we could certainly sense that the team was a little slow starting, and well documented as to the reasons, folks not really getting any sort of break from Operation Restart, and so the team was in a little bit of injury dilemma as well as just fitness dilemma. And I think certainly as we've talked about, with Ruben Diaz, and then the resurgence of John Stones, the defense has become, the preeminent defense in the Premier League, which is just amazing. And even when offensively the strikers and wingers were struggling for goals, we were in games because of how well the defense played together. And then, as the fitness levels built, you could just see the confidence building as well. And like everything else that's been mentioned about this season, there's been nothing typical about this season, but you could just see the team building stamina and building fitness and building strength and building confidence as they work through. And then last Sunday was, I don't know how many times you've watched the match, but I think I've watched it 3 times now. I mean, it's just, and I think we talked about this when I saw I'd watched the Liverpool game during Operation Restart on board the space station, and then they had recorded it for me, so I must have watched that one 3 or 4 times as well. I don't know what it is, but when we have those type of matches against Liverpool, it's just I cannot watch it enough, and just to see the team, even after Ilkay missed the penalty shot, which was, I'm sure everybody in Blue was thinking, oh, here we go again.
That ball's somewhere up near the space station, isn't it? That penalty.
Yeah, poor Ilkay. And yeah, he just flubbed his lines, unfortunately. And you just think, oh, here's the Anfield curse is going to go again, and we're going to end up in a draw. But then, the second half, they came out with a tweak to the tactics, and I think Liverpool tweaked their tactics as well. And then, capitalizing on mistakes, being ruthless with those mistakes that they made, and that was the difference. I do think, and of course, because I'm a City fan, I do think the penalty against Ruben was soft, but he certainly had a bit of an error there. But that was a pretty good acting job by Mo, so I have to give him credit for that. But they probably have to call that penalty. But man, that was a soft one. But even then, I think that was really Liverpool never really threatened. I think they had more of the ball than typically we see of most opponents, but in general, ruthless. And then Phil Foden.
I was going to say, out of this world, isn't he?
I mean, I've watched that replay probably a half dozen times. That goal, I don't think that ball had any rotation on it. I don't think in 100 years he could have hit it any truer. And then you can just see Allison's reaction. I mean, he could not react fast enough to even move his hands. I mean, he got his hands up after the ball was in the back of the net, but I mean, Phil hit that as true as anybody could hit a soccer ball. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
I mean, I've been talking to American fans. Actually, I know you're a member of a branch, the Hollywood Space Citizens, or
Houston.
Sorry, the Houston, yeah, Hollywood. I'm not talking about it. I'm thinking of you because you're Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I know you're a member of their branch, and I was talking to them the other night, and they were very, very excited to watch the game and want me to come back on again. There is an ever-growing presence of City fans in the States, isn't there?
It's so neat to see, and I think certainly. Once again, the coverage is great over here. You can see so many matches, and I'm certainly biased, but frankly, I don't care. I mean, it's the best football in the world. I mean, bar none. It's not even close. And certainly this season, I think I read we've had 9 teams at the top of the Premier League this year. I mean, tell me another league that's even gotten half that many teams to the top of their leagues over the course of any season, let alone this year. So, yeah, it's incredible. And literally on any given day, as we saw just a week ago, Burnley, put it to I believe it was Brighton put it to Liverpool as well as Burnley. So and then of course City had their struggles against West Brom. Luckily it was a draw. But these lower teams on any given day, and of course Sheffield United is another one I think of a lot. Those poor guys, they play everybody tough. They just haven't won any of their games to speak of. But on any given day, anybody can pull out a victory.
So over the weekend, when it was the NFL World, final, and you've got City playing Liverpool as well. As an American, you sound as if you were more passionate, more interested in watching the City game then.
Oh, it's not even close. Not even close. Yeah, I remember, I can't remember which Super Bowl it was. It was one of the recent ones. I think City played Arsenal on Super Bowl Sunday and had a great game. I think that was a 3-1 or 4-1 game. And it was kind of a highly contested match, because typically it is, but Arsenal was probably playing even better then than they are now. But, oh yeah, I mean, the Super Bowl, we turned it on, I think, probably 20 minutes into the first half. I almost think we missed almost the whole. Of course, we have quarters in our American football, and it was probably at least 10 or 15 minutes into the first quarter. So the first quarter was almost over. But and then it ended up being I think as football games go, it was pretty poor. I mean, you admire when a team has done their homework, and for example, in Premier League football, where the tactics just, you get out managed by the other team, if you're very evenly matched as far as players. But then, it ends up being a 3-0 game type of thing. And this was very similar to that. The Chiefs are a very good team, but Tampa Bay just their tactics were just so much better, and they executed. I mean, you felt bad for Kansas City in a sense, but Tampa Bay just had their number completely.
I'm guessing in the background that you've got as a NASA astronaut and the achievements that you've had in your life, that you listen to somebody like Pep Guardiola, the coach of our team, talking about no excuses. And I mean mentally not having excuses, that when something goes wrong, you find a way to get around it without looking for a mental excuse. We heard Jurgen Klopp talking about Alisson having cold feet. We talked before the game of him saying that City had 2 weeks off because of COVID and that they were more rested, which both statements seem ridiculous. Pep never looks for excuses. When Kevin De Bruyne is out injured, then you just move on without him and you accept that and hope he'll come back soon. Is that, you probably relate to that better than anybody because of your background in the job that you've had in your entire career, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We talk about compartmentalization, which is, focusing on the task at hand. And I think to a degree, it is kind of not making excuses. Certainly, I've made lots of mistakes over my career. I mean, it's just, we're human. We do those things, and you just have to not let it affect you. You have to. I remember one of my colleagues, who a senior colleague at the time, he just said, you're going to make a mistake in simulator, because our simulator training, especially in the shuttle, was pretty intense. They would throw a lot of things at you, frankly, to the point where they were unrealistic. But what they were trying to test is your ability to work through these multiple malfunctions as a crew, and then get back together and kind of figure out where you are within the mission after that. And it was, it kind of tested not only your knowledge of the systems of the space shuttle, but it also tested the ability of the crew to work together to support each other during these different malfunctions. And I think, his advice was great advice. And I would pass it on to our newer astronauts all the time, in that, look, you're gonna make a mistake. Accept that fact. Absolutely, you're a human being. You're not a robot. You're gonna make a mistake at some point. Don't dwell on it. You understand, acknowledge what you did when you have the time. If it's a case of needing to practice that particular procedure again, go ahead and do it. Self-evaluation is great, but then move on. Don't let it affect you to the point where you make a second mistake. And I think, you certainly, at least in my opinion, you certainly saw that with Allison, and you certainly feel awful for that guy, because we all have those days, just like Jurgen Klopp said. But in the end, the mistakes are going to happen, and excuses make it worse, in my opinion. And I do admire Pep for saying for not throwing out different excuses. I mean, it seemed like it was well publicized. It appears to me in the English press that it's well publicized that Liverpool is, quote unquote, struggling this year because of they've lost Van Dijk and they've lost Joe Gomez and they've had injuries. And it's like, and maybe I'm biased, and if I am, I apologize, but I don't see a big difference between the significant losses to their team that they've had are any different than the City issues that we've had almost from the start of the season. I mean, we had multiple players with COVID. We lost De Bruyne for a significant amount of time. We frankly haven't had Sergio. We haven't had a recognized striker for several games. We've had Laporte in and out. We've had Ake in and out. So I think, yeah, and once again, like you said, Pep hasn't made an excuse. I think we went to Chelsea with 14 players and basically ran riot through that team, who are, by anybody's assessment, a pretty darn good team. Maybe had some challenges, but certainly on paper they've got some talented players, and certainly more of their first teamers available than City had when they went and played them at Stamford Bridge, I believe. So it just, yeah, the excuses in the end, I'm sure Jurgen feels the weight of the world, and I don't want to make an excuse for him, but yeah, it seemed like, okay, just acknowledge the fact that you got outplayed, be humble about it, and move on. But he seemed to be wanting to make excuses why they lost. It's like, well, you lost because you got beat by a better team. I mean, that's the bottom line, right?
One of the reasons why I've carried on doing these interviews, like the one with you today, Doug, which I'm very appreciative of you doing once again, is because I care very much at the moment about people suffering from anxiety and mental health issues during this terrible pandemic. And I've actually made phone calls to hundreds of City fans just to see how they are. Not doing this for the club or anything like that, just for me. Yeah. And so I'm curious to know, because you're an inspirational person and a very positive person. How are you coping? I mean, how do you cope with this? And in your training for the job that you've done, because you do spend time in isolation, away from your family. I mean, you can't get much more isolated than being in a space station. How do you cope, and how are you coping?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ian. I think, you know, probably like most everybody else, you know, we have our good days and our bad days. It's tough because our normal life has been so drastically disrupted. Um, but I think, you know, you fall back on some of the things I talked about before, where you just compartmentalize. You know, I try to be concerned with the things I can actually do something about, and then the things that we have no control over, like, for example, you know, when we're locked down, or this pandemic, this virus, you know, you do the best you can to take care of yourself, your family, and the people around you. You know, wear a mask, socially distance, all those types of things, and just be smart about the things that can be helpful, and get us beyond this pandemic and these restrictions, so that we can kind of get back to what we some semblance of normal life. And then the other thing I think that hopefully many people have been able to do is just reconnect with some people that maybe we had lost track of. I've had the opportunity to do that to some degree, and that's been very, very rewarding, and it kind of takes your mind off some of the other things. And then, of course, for me, you know, I spent a lot of time away from my family in the lead up to our mission last summer, as well as obviously being in space for a couple months. And so certainly getting to spend more time at home with my family has been incredibly rewarding. And so I think it's just trying your best to control the things that you actually have control of, and accept that these other things you can't do anything about. So you can't let it affect you. And I know that's much, much, much easier said than done, but you know, I think it has certainly helped me to some degree, but in the end, yeah, there's been certainly some challenging times, because you just are like, oh, I just want to go out to a restaurant, and I just want to, you know, have a beer at the pub with some of my friends. You know, we just haven't done that in so long. It's almost like I'd never done it. And then I would say this, you know, from the City fan perspective, hopefully this run of form and you know, for me has been incredible. You know, the incredible excitement and joy of seeing the team play so well. You know, it's a great escape to be able to watch them and see how well they're playing, and then just how things have gone so far in the season, and you know, the optimism for, you know, the 4 different potential challenges they have working forward. They're still in each competition, so you never know. Maybe this is the year.
Neither you or I mean, I obviously can't afford to pay you for this interview. You're doing it for free, and I've got no sponsor for this vlog, so I'm making nothing out of it either. But I'm hoping that one person, if only one person watching this video, feels a bit better having watched it and a bit more inspired. Is there anything that you can say directly to the person who's watching this? Let's think of it as one person that gives them hope and confidence that things will return to normal.
Yeah, I think, you know, from what I've seen here in the United States, and I think it's very similar in the UK, you know, our scientists are working nonstop. Our healthcare professionals are working nonstop. And, you know, we're going to get beyond this. You know, we've got the technology, we've got the intelligence, we've got the scientific research to see the end of this pandemic, at least to the degree where we can get back to normal. And I think, you know, we're starting to see that. We're seeing curves starting to flatten. We're seeing vaccines being given out. We're seeing multiple options of vaccines, and it seems like more every week and every month. And I think those types of things and that concerted effort and that focus, we're going to get beyond this, and ideally beyond it this year. And so you kind of have to look at it from perspective. You know, we've been going through this now around 11 months, so we're almost on course for a year, and hopefully within a year, if not significantly less, because I think we're starting to see the vaccine being administered at a greater rate almost every week here in the United States, and hopefully that's the same in the UK. And so that gives me a tremendous amount of hope. And then the other part is doing your part. If you're the person that's wearing a mask, socially distancing, for a few more months, I think we'll get beyond it, and then hopefully by the end of this year, this will all just be a completely unpleasant memory for all of us. That's my true hope. And then, oh, by the way, maybe we'll be Premier League champions and maybe even Champions League champions. So we'll see.
Well, I must admit that the thing I'm looking forward to the most is hugging people again. I'm quite a tactile person, and the thought of you coming over to the States, I've never actually had the chance to meet you yet, and perhaps be able to shake your hand and celebrate a goal would be quite a nice thing to do, wouldn't it?
I am counting the days till we get to meet in person, and then of course, hopefully either before or after a match at the Etihad. It just and I think we've talked about this before. My son and I have come over to England several times, and we're actually on our way over the weekend of basically when the world shut down. We were coming over to see a match, a Premier League match on Saturday, and then see the Champions League Real Madrid match later that week, back in the early part of 2020, in March of 2020. So yeah, I can't tell you how emotional it was to go the first time, and then to be able to after becoming friends with you, Ian, just what it's going to be like to actually share a game in person, and then a pint or two afterwards, hopefully celebrating a victory.
Well, you are an inspirational man, the things you've achieved in your life, and we're really proud to have you as a City fan, and of course now I hope as friends as well, you and I, Doug, we can share experiences together in the future. So thanks very much for joining me once again. Keep well, and let's hope it's not too long before we do actually get to go to a game together.
Oh, you bet. Cheers, Ian. It's always great to talk to you, and certainly can't wait for that day. And I'm certain it's going to be sooner rather than later. We just have to, kind of bear down, be strong for the next few months, and be respectful, and do the things that we can do to help prevent the spread of COVID, and get our vaccines when it's our turn, and we'll be on the other side of this.
And thanks very much to Colonel Doug Hurley. Now, he's talking about mental health there, and that's something I really care about. And I've discovered a tool, an online tool. It's free to use, it's confidential. It's just something I've used and might be useful to you. You can see the link to it on this graphic that I've put up. It's confidential. It's like you would have if you had a meeting with a doctor, but it's a mental health thing, but it is completely anonymous. Share it with your friends and family if you like. I hope it's useful, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay healthy.